Let me know if this resonates. Have you been told that in order to be successful, you just have to hustle and grind? So, do you find yourself eating ramen at your desk while you crank out just one more email? Do you find yourself staying up until 1 a.m. to finish that sales page? Are you glued to your computer all the time? Are you constantly distracted by your phone? And my personal favorite, and one that I am more than a little guilty of. Do you find yourself calculating sales conversions or the success of an event or any other business detail in your mind during mass when you should be paying attention? That's me. If you struggle with any of these things, I am so excited to bring on my very special guest today. She is a health and a life coach, Jessica Castillo. She's going to help us understand why burnout in entrepreneurship is particularly problematic, especially for the Catholic entrepreneur. That's what's coming up today on the Possibility Mom Live. Before I bring Jessica on, I want to share with you that I am in the beautiful state of Minnesota. I love Minnesota. I think it's because, like, it reminds me a lot of Canada. So, first of all, it's actually more north than where I live currently in Canada. Like, I am more north currently than where I live in Canada. There is a, I'm not sure how to describe the accent. Like, I feel like you just know if you know any. There is a beautiful Minnesota, I can't even do it, Minnesota, they're a little bit Minnesota accent. There's a little bit of a, like, today I can't do it. Anyway, but there it has, I would say there is a little similarity with a Canadian, well, what people tell me is a Canadian accent, because I don't think I have a Canadian accent, but then people who live in the United States will say, "Yes, you have a Canadian accent." But Minnesota reminds me of a little bit of a Canadian accent, which I couldn't describe to you. And I am here for the FACTS conference, which is all about fertility from a completely natural approach. And it makes me so happy to be here because I've become very convicted that we need to empowerment and health cannot be divided. Like, meaning, I believe that empowerment cannot just be from your mind. Because think about this for a second. In order for you to be a, however you want to describe it, like powerful, girl boss, girl power, whatever words you want to describe that resonate with you about female empowerment, it can exist in the mind, certainly, but it cannot only exist in the mind, because if you have great thoughts, but you are so exhausted, and yes, can your thoughts impact your energy and help you increase your energy? Absolutely. But if you are so tired all the time that it's hard to think cogently, do you know what I mean? Like, if you, like, are so sleep deprived or eat terrible foods that you have brain fog all the time, I don't know. I think there's only a certain, there's like a certain limit, so to speak, on how much you can get your mind. Like, so for example, I have been, you can maybe hear it a little bit in my voice. I've basically been talking for the last 5 days straight. Like, literally, like, I led for the Guiding Star Project, of which I'm the president of. I led a beautiful retreat experience for all of our executive directors across the United States. I was the main presenter, I would say, for the duration of the retreat. And then we moved into a quarterly planning day for my team for the national office. And then we moved into this conference that I'm at, where you, of course, meet people and whatnot. So my point is like, you can't be cogent. My takeaway, or my emphasis that I really want to make here is, you can have a great mindset, but lack of sleep and lack of nutrition and lack of hydration is all going to impact how impactful you can be. So that is why I am so excited to bring on today Jessica Castillo. She is a certified health coach, a Catholic life coach, and she is going to be one of the in-person speakers at Wealth Without Guilt Live 2023 in Toronto, Canada. Check this out. It's Lisa Canning, the Possibility Mom, coming at you from downtown Toronto, which is going to be the site of Wealth Without Guilt Live 2023, the conference to attend for the Catholic mom who is pursuing holiness in both business and in motherhood. This is the conference to attend if you're looking to serve God with your business, trust God with your business, and build a profitable business that will contribute to a thriving Catholic economy. Tickets are available both in person here in Toronto and online. And to grab your ticket, just click the button below. You can find the link to join me at Wealth Without Guilt Live 2023 right below this video. If you're watching it on YouTube or if you're listening to it on your podcast app, it is in the show notes, or you can simply just go to thepossibilitymomconference.com/2023. Without further delay, Jessica Castillo, here we go. Jessica, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm so good.
Before we came on live, I was like, you are brunette Barbie. Like, you just, like, if you cannot see this beautiful woman on the screen, if you're listening to this auditory only, you are missing out, because I was like, Jessica, you always, and I said, like, we're actually going to be sharing a house in Toronto when she comes for the conference. I'm going to be sharing a house with a bunch of my beautiful mastermind members. I'm so excited. And I was like, I'm sure you look quote unquote normal without makeup and all the things, but like, you just always look refreshed and vital, and like everything is shiny and glossy, but in a good, natural way. You're going to tell us your secrets to all of this. So, Jessica, for anyone who might not know you, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jessica Castillo. I am the founder of A Thriving Catholic, where I coach Catholics, particularly Catholic entrepreneurs, in how they can thrive in body, mind, and soul.
And you and I met, I remember it was shortly after I had launched Wealth Without Guilt. So I want to say 2 years ago. And I remember I was so intrigued because where were you when we met?
Hawaii.
You were in Hawaii, but you were relocating to Germany. So what makes your life so unique that you're bouncing around right now? You're in North Carolina. What is unique about your life that you bounce around in many different places?
Well, I am a former Army officer myself, so I traveled a lot as an Army officer, but my husband is still an active duty Army officer. And so I didn't get very far from the military, which means we move really frequently and to exciting places like Hawaii and Germany.
So much fun. Thank you both for your service. You are a graduate of West Point. And for those
Yes.
of you Canadians, maybe who might not understand like the significance of that, West Point is like basically how many women get into West Point?
I think when I was there, women made up about 15% of each graduating class. And so each class would graduate under 2,000 people, about 1,500 to 2,000 people for a graduating class. Those numbers vary a little bit.
And I remember you telling me once the statistic of how many women stay, like meaning like make it to the end. If I remember correctly, it wasn't all that high, right? So my point is that you have jumped out of airplanes. You did 2 tours remind me, in Iraq?
Yes.
2 tours in Iraq, and have graduated successfully from one of the most competitive and rigorous schools in the world, arguably. How has all of that experience prepped you for what you do today?
Yeah, I think it's really helped me learn the strategies of what it takes to actually perform at a really high level and on a consistent basis. When you're doing an important mission that can't fail, you can't let your body and mind get, you know, burned out or overwhelmed or anything that's like you were saying in your intro, Lisa, anything that's going to keep you from being at your best is going to keep you from performing the mission that you've been given to do at the level that it needs to be performed. And so I think that what I've learned from working in some really high pressure, high stress, high stakes situations is what it takes to keep myself at my best and performing as well as I possibly can.
Mm. So let's fast forward. You're currently you're with your family in Germany right now. You're in the United States, but your family is in Europe, and you run a thriving Catholic. Tell us a little bit about that. This online based business. Why did you start a thriving Catholic?
Yeah, so I started a Thriving Catholic really in response to prayer. I had gotten out of the army. I had started my family. I was trying to figure out what the Lord wanted me to do with my life. I had started and stopped multiple graduate school programs, just trying to find like what was a good fit for me. And I wasn't finding anything that really fulfilled what my deepest desires and what I thought the Lord was asking of me, what I was capable of, what I could provide to the world. I really wasn't. I was sort of like, Lord, what do you want me to be when I grow up? I am grown up. I've got 3 kids. I'm out of the army. So what do I do? And, in this kind of struggle, that's really, I feel like sometimes the Lord really uses suffering for us to actually help us hear his voice a little more clearly. At least that's been the case in my life because I'm a little bit hard headed and stubborn, and I tend to think that I can manage things. And so, what I needed was for the Lord to kind of bring me a little bit low and show me what his will for me was and not my will that I just hoped was his will. And so it was really during this time that I started struggling with depression myself because I felt really trapped in my in my life. As a wife and as a mom, I was not feeling fulfilled. I wasn't feeling like, by trying to fit this kind of cookie cutter image of this is what a good Catholic wife and mom looks like, I was just hitting wall after wall. And finally, I was so frustrated with the Lord because I was like, hey, I'm holding up my side of the bargain. I'm doing what you called me to do, but I'm so unhappy. Where is the joy? Where is this extraordinary life that you've promised us, this abundant life? And so for me, what that led to was just really turning to substances. I started drinking really heavily. I started binge eating a lot of junk food. I was staying up really late every night, like binge watching TV. And I was just turning away from everything that I knew made me like thrive, made me as a human really in good health and everything, because I didn't care anymore. I was like, if there's not a deeper purpose, I don't care. Like if my only joy in life is from the bottom of a bottle or from, binge watching a Netflix show, then I don't care enough to try to be at my best because there's no point. And
Mm.
so I really spiraled and I was really in this very dark place. Um, and it really took the support of good friends and also kind of the intervention of my husband and my family to kind of call me on what I was dealing with and what I was struggling with. Um, and that was really good because it led me to change some of those habits that were really exacerbating my depression. And so, you know, when I realized that I was dealing with depression, I was like, okay, if this is my enemy, depression is my enemy, then there's a strategy for defeating any enemy, right? Like you just use your army training, you come up with a strategy and your plan. And my strategy was I was going to stop drinking. I was going to cut out sugar. I was going to clean up my diet. I was going to sleep more. I was going to start exercising again. I just did the things that I already knew and I had already done for so many years of my life that I knew were going to help me feel better physically. Because as far as like my thinking went, depression is a chemical imbalance in my brain. Well, my brain is a physical organ and I can change what happens in my physical body. And so this is what I'm going to do. And it was in the course of doing all of this that I eventually ended up seeing a therapist. But by the time I finally had an appointment to go to therapy, I was already doing so much better. Like, I literally walked into my first therapy appointment and she was like, "You look like you're doing great." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing okay actually. I'm sleeping better. I've lost like 30 pounds that I had put on during this depression. I had um I was feeling better. I had more energy. But it was now at this point where I was just right back where I started. Basically, I was like, okay, I'm in good health. I have energy. I'm in a good headspace. I still don't know what the Lord wants me to do. And so that was when I was finally really open to turning to God and just saying, like, all right, Lord, you've given me these gifts, you've given me these talents, you've given me this life. What do you want me to do with it? How am I going to take all of this and use it and do something good that has a purpose, that has a meaning, that fulfills me in this life? And I literally, in that moment of prayer, had the idea for a thriving Catholic come into my mind. It was
Mm.
always body, mind, soul. You're going to help Catholics thrive in body, mind, and soul. You're going to show them what you've learned and teach them the strategies that are going to help them be really thriving and exceptional. And so that was the impetus. That was the start of a thriving Catholic. And from there, it really just kind of grew because I didn't know that coaching was a thing. I didn't know what to call myself. I didn't know that people did this professionally. I just knew what I could offer and I knew who I could help. And so I just kind of set off. And it was over the course of that I ended up getting certified as a health coach. I ended up getting more training as a Catholic mindset coach. That's, when I entered your world, Lisa, and I learned more about the world of coaching in general. And it really helped me start to clarify my niche, who I can serve, who I can work with. And that really kind of brings me up to today where I work primarily with Catholic entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I have so many things I want to respond to. Oh my gosh. Like, first of all, when thank you for your service, right? It's a phrase that uh, in Canada we have definitely military, right? But there's not the same, or at least my observation, I could be wrong, but there's not the same. I will say, like thank you for your service is almost an automatic response. I notice in the United States that everybody uses, and like children, older people, like everybody understands that phrase. When you meet somebody who has served, you literally say thank you for your service. Not the same in Canada. I just don't think we have that same culture or that same, I don't know, vernacular, to be honest. But it's interesting to me because you've just simply moved into a different kind of service. It's become very impressed upon me how much those three things, body, mind, and spirit, need to be addressed. And if people listening to this podcast, if you've been listening for a long time, you know how much I've been focused on the central nervous system part of the body. But for me, I have not as much. Let me clarify. There have been times in my life where I have focused on the more nutritional and sleep part, and you have helped me tremendously. But if I'm being very honest, that's the part for me currently that is sort of not at all being prioritized, or not being prioritized as much as I know it could be and it should be. And I think it's pretty common. Like, I would just invite you, if you're watching this live, if you're listening to this after the fact, which one of the three that Jessica has mentioned? So, your mind, your body, and your spirit. And it's almost like you could draw little teeny tiny offshoots, right, from each one. But let's just be basic: mind, body, and spirit. Which one is currently not being prioritized? And in the work that I do with entrepreneurs, Jessica, and I know you know this too, it's just what I see is either somebody might be really rocking it at one. So, for example, I would say like mindset, there's a lot of coaches who have done a lot of training and have worked very, very hard to keep their thoughts clean and helpful and pointed towards Jesus. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs who are very faithful have maybe worked with a spiritual director for a really long time. But I would say this health piece, so nutrition, exercise, sleep, is kind of your classic, like everybody, every entrepreneur, I feel like, or at least the ones that I commonly interact with. Some of my mentors that I've worked with in the past have been like, "Oh no, I have a trainer and I always drink like 17,000 ounces of water." Like, some of the gurus that I follow don't fit that. But I would say your normal, either successful or not successful entrepreneur, like you're just normal person. That's been my experience. Is that's the common one to struggle with. Would you say, would you say it's similar in your circles?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I see all the time entrepreneurs, especially, we kind of start to believe this lie, like you were mentioning in the intro, that if we just hustle, if we work harder, if we, we can put our health on the back burner, we can sacrifice our health, but we kind of believe this lie that it's just short term. Like, I'm just going to not sleep this week because I have a launch, or I'm just going to eat ramen at my desk today, but tomorrow I'm making a salad. Or, we start to believe these lies that it's short term, that we're going to have better habits, that we have to put our health on the back burner because it makes room for the things that are really important that we need to do in our business. Yes, I see that all the time.
And I think it's like, especially for moms, and I'm just being very transparent and vulnerable here. I have a lot of access to this knowledge. I have access to people like you who have this knowledge and can help me. And one of the biggest things you've helped me with is just making different choices when I eat. So, like for example, I'm at a conference, and it could be very easy for me to eat like French fries or any other kind of fried food. But I have, as a result of being exposed to your work, I will pick the salmon and the salad a lot more because truly it's just those great fats, and I feel better. I have more mental clarity, all the things. Even though I might prefer to have the French fries, I now am convinced of the benefits of something like a salmon. But it's just being very transparent. I think for moms, especially when you're building a business in the margins of your motherhood, so meaning you've got a little toddler on your hip who might either need you because they're needy, or they are playing independently for like 5 minutes. So you're like, I'm going to sit down and finally get that sales page or that email written. You sit down, and then they spill the entire box of Cheerios. So like you're you're like, how am I going to get that done? So either you have just normal straight up life circumstances that don't allow you to get things done during the day, so then you stay up late at night, and then you get into this habitual pattern. So what would you tell people who are very habitually inclined to working at night? Like, what is just a simple thing one can do?
Well, I think the first thing to recognize too is just that working at night isn't always a bad thing, because it
Mhm.
really does depend on your chronotype and when your natural circadian rhythm happens. A lot of people think they have to be part of the 5 a.m. club, they have to wake up early, and they can't, and they must go to bed early. But I think honestly, if you're working against your natural rhythms, you're just working against your natural rhythms. So getting the right amount of sleep, that's so important. But one thing I want to mention too is, just as we're talking, St. Paul writes that worldly athletes train in every way for a perishable crown. So if you think about like an Olympic athlete, they are going to bed on time. They are eating the salmon and the salad. They are hydrating. They are training hard. But why? So they can win a medal. But when we put that into context, I really think it's super important to think about all of these physical habits, even the habit of sleep, everything that we're doing with our bodies. We need to put it into the proper context, which is that it is a means to an end, and it is not the end in and of itself. And so I think it's really important for us to start with the end in mind. So before we even get into like the details, and we will, like, I will definitely get into some details, but when it comes to um, why are we doing this? Why is taking care of your body and your mind and your soul so important? Well, it comes down to, what is the end? And, I know for you, Lisa, and I know for the women that you coach and that you work with, the end is usually a mission driven business, right? Like, you feel that God has called you to this work, God has called you to this business. This is your purpose. This is your one, well, part of your vocation, right? So you have a vocation as a wife and mother, of course. And then part of your vocation is the work that you're doing in this world. And for many of your clients and mine, that's their business. That's this mission driven business. And so when we step back and we think about it from the lens of God has called me to this business, God has called me to this vocation of wife, mother, business owner, then it behooves me to use every means at my disposal to pursue excellence, because this is not a perishable worldly crown. We can train ourselves in every way to achieve a crown that does not perish. And so we know that the ultimate highest priority end goal of all of our lives is sainthood. But we can also recognize that performing our vocations with excellence is that path to sainthood. And the way that we grow in virtue is in having to exercise it in the performance of our vocations. So that's the end.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. So I always want to
I'm
like
sorry.
start with
Pause for 1 second. That was a total gut punch for me. Like, that was really, really powerful. I really want to encourage you, if you were like distracted, if you were doing the dishes or folding the laundry, rewind this podcast to about like 60 seconds ago, where Jessica starts talking about the end in mind, but a perishable, what did you say? Throne? Crown.
a perpetual crown.
Perishable crown. Like,
Yeah.
that is really, I just need to pause and reflect that back, because I think too, when you, at least this was my experience, when I got into secular business coaching, which again, I'm always very careful to be like, I'm not trying to like bash secular business coaching. I learned so much from my secular business coaches. But they're just, by the nature of what they're doing, they're not focused on this perishable crown. Like, they're not focused on that. It's just not their nature. Like, it's not their world. It might be their worldview, but they may have chosen not to lean into that in their training, right? So then, of course, what happened to me was I came out of thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of online courses with this, again, maybe spoken, but maybe unspoken. I can't really recall, but this focus on, this is what success looks like. You just hustle and grind, and you just don't, there's one of my former mentors, or I still consider him a mentor, but he has a phrase. It's like, you're in it until you win it. Like, and until you don't stop until you win it. Something like that. It's like you win the game by not quitting the game. It's something like that. And again, amazing quote. Like, I'm not trying, and I really respect and admire this man. But if that is your holy grail, that's going to become problematic. If you think that is it, that is the odd, and I know that's not what he's saying, just for clarity, but if you think that is the ultimate success, of course you're going to work until like 1 a.m. Of course you're going to think about conversions during mass, because success has been framed or put on this pedestal in your head. And so I just really want to encourage everybody that is an amazing phrase. Like, we're going to turn that into a sticker, Jessica. We're going to turn that into it. Let's turn that into something. You should put that on a mug and sell t-shirts, because that's an amazing. And St. Paul, you said?
Well, yeah. So in I want to say it's his letter to the Corinthians. Don't quote me. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, he says worldly athletes train in every way for a perishable crown. So how much more should we train for a crown that doesn't perish? And so we have to strive and we have to try. And I think that what happens to a lot of Catholic entrepreneurs, and again, like you said, this isn't knocking secular business coaching, because there's a lot to be learned. But what happens is that without even realizing that it's happening, a lot of Catholic entrepreneurs start buying into those beliefs and that worldview that everything relies on us, everything depends on us. We just have to hustle, 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 work, work, work. And what I'm really trying to call people to do is to step back and to take that broader perspective of, what if everything doesn't depend on you? And what if the path to the success that you want to achieve in your business, because there's nothing wrong with wanting to achieve success in your business. In fact, if God has called you to this business, then you should try to be successful. You should do everything in your power to be successful. But you have to recognize at the end of the day that it's not depending on you. It is, you have to be leaning on God so hard that if He was not there, you would fall over. And so we pursue excellence with that goal in mind.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I want to circle back to this, but give us one tip about sleep specifically. And then we're going to circle back to this exact point. But give us one tip about sleep. If anyone listening struggles with staying up late because they just, but they do it consistently. Because I heard what you said earlier. It's like if your rhythm allows you to be very productive in the night, then perhaps it's not bad. But definitely there's a challenge when it's perpetual and you're getting, maybe 4 hours of sleep a night. Like, so we do have to be kind of, obviously sleep is important. So if somebody struggles with sleep, what's one very practical element that they can integrate today?
Well, you do have to work within the bounds of your reality. So if you have little kids waking up early, so you have to wake up early, you are going to have to try to shift your sleep schedule a little bit. And so work within the bounds of your chronotype as much as possible. But again, recognize reality. If your kids are up and you need to be up, then it really does come down to consistency. There's not a better consistency is king when it comes to getting good sleep. So if you're consistently going to bed and waking up at the same time, your body thrives on that because you're made in the circadian, your body, so many processes in your body run off the circadian rhythm. So your digestion, your hormones, like when you wake and sleep is so important. And so we throw ourselves off so much when we're just inconsistent in our sleep. So as much as possible, consistency is the number one tip. And then just like a little side caveat tip that I would give too, the thing that I find hinders most people's consistency, or they will start staying up later, is they start thinking that that's the only time they have either for themselves or to do their best quality work. And so people start to really shortchange the value of sleep. And some of that is ignorance of the science. Like if you know the science of sleep, then you know that it is your secret weapon to doing your absolute best work. It is your secret weapon to your creativity, your productivity, your better mood, your better health, your easier weight loss. I mean, everything that you want to achieve that is good, sleep will help you get there. But people shortchange that because in the short term, we don't see it. We're like, yeah, but if I only sleep 6 hours, I was able to finish this sales page. What you don't realize is how much more exceptional would that sales page have been if you were able to approach it with your prefrontal cortex fully online and you were able to do even better work. So that's the consistency is the number one tip. The number two tip is recognize the value.
Mhm, mhm. I love sleep. I love sleep so much. Oh my gosh. But I'm groaning over here because I definitely am choosing, not all the time, but I definitely choose more than I would like to admit to believe that this is the only time I have to
Mhm.
myself. It's not accurate. That is completely not accurate. But I definitely am choosing to believe that. Okay, number one. And then number two, I have become habitual about it. And it's like, I know that I can write way better copy when I'm not like falling asleep at my computer. Like it's a problem. So anyway, but those are some really practical tips. So you have been in my mastermind. I have been so fortunate to have you in it from the beginning, basically. So for 2 rounds. And you are such a valuable asset in so many different ways. But one of the things that I've enjoyed a lot about you is you and I struggle with similar challenges around what we've addressed a little bit in the podcast, self-reliance, right? Um, I just we've had many intimate a conversation over Slack about and I find your encouragement so helpful. You're a very natural encourager. I find that is a very, I don't know if like sort of I have a picture of people who've been in the military, and I'm sure you were yelled at a lot, and I'm sure you yelled at other people, right? I'm sure that there was an aggression, so to speak, about that had to be necessary when you jump out of airplanes. But I find you to be such an incredibly generous and positive and really encouraging. Like you have a real gift of encouragement. As much as you're willing to share, because this is very, intimate and vulnerable stuff. But you were talking earlier about trusting the Lord, that it's not all on you, that it's not, um, just that's part I still really struggle with. If I just stay up, everything will be better because I will be able to do more. I will be able to influence more. I'm living through it currently. I just ran a huge event. I'm going to run a huge event next week. My inclination is to be like, I have to do so many things and be very graspy and be very, mad at people maybe who don't either help me or don't help me in the way I want them to help me. Like and that definitely was a past Lisa, if I'm being really honest. If you had met me in my early 20s, oh my word, like get out of the way because it would have been scary. You know what I mean? Like, but what I've learned, and this is age, this is experience, but it's 100% fueled by a trust in the Lord. I've learned to close the computer. I've learned to walk away from a task. I've learned to simply choose. And it doesn't mean you don't do exactly what you're describing, pursuing things with excellence. You still do that. You don't sort of procrastinate forever or whatever. But when I'm in moments where, oh, wow, there is a lot of things to do, I really do choose very conscientiously to trust the Lord. Okay, Lord, this is your event. If you want this to be good, I trust that you will make it as successful as it's going to be. I'm going to be as best as I can, be a good steward of my time, and and simply trust that either you will fill in all the gaps, or if you choose not to, then there's something in that experience for me. And I want to just like make a quick caveat on what I just said. In my personal experience, things have always gone well. Certainly, things have tanked. But I'll be honest, I don't have as many examples of that. Things still work out, and even if they don't, it's like you just pivot. So, for example, I'm here in Minnesota. I'm expecting a shipment because it's way cheaper to ship in the continental USA than it is to Canada. And so I was like, I'm going to ship a lot of things for my conference here and then just shove them in my suitcase. And then it's like, whatever, not expensive to bring in my suitcase, right? But unfortunately, one of the boxes, it looks like it's not going to get here until I'm on an airplane. So I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of like, that's really inconvenient. Like, and the biggest box, of course. The biggest box is the one that, so it's gonna be the most costly for somebody else to ship for me on my behalf across the border, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but I could choose to be like, this is so annoying. Like I could choose to be like, I can't believe this is happening. How come you didn't place the order earlier, Lisa? Yada, 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 yada. Or I could simply choose to be like, well, maybe it'll get here on time. Or I could choose to be like, Lord, make it get here on time. Or I could simply choose to be like, well, if it's not going to get here, then I will pivot. And what is the worst thing that will happen? We don't have that thing for my conference. Oh, well, big whoop. Figure something else out, right? But that requires so much surrender of my preferences, of my control, of how I pictured something that would go. That's the part for me that's the hardest part. It's like
Mhm.
I pictured that this was going to look a certain way, and then without that shipment, it's now not going to be what I pictured. But again, I've trained myself at this point to be like, well, what if the other picture is actually better? What does this look like for you? How do you trust the Lord when you are inclined to be like, "No, I got it." What does it look like for you?
Well, I have to say that this is definitely a habit that I am growing in every day. And, you mentioned my time in the army, and I was thinking about how my leadership in the army, the most effective leaders in the army or in industry or in anything are those referential leaders, like the referential leadership style where you are leading from the front by example. You're not going to ask your subordinates to do anything that you wouldn't do yourself. And it really is a servant leader mentality. You have to be a servant leader. And so that's applied for my army time, and that applies for my time now as a coach as well. So the people that I'm working with, and even like my friends in the mastermind, I want to be of service. I so as a servant leader, these are skills and tactics that I'm doing myself. Like, this is me stepping out, doing my best to pursue excellence. And while I'm doing it, I'm trying to encourage anyone I'm leading along that path as well. So it's really a habit that you start to build of, okay, Lord, this is my preference. This is how I want things to go. This is my will. And so for me, it's almost a daily, hourly, every work session, turning back again to the Lord and saying, Lord, what is your will? And just really help me to see your will, and then help me to more closely align my will with yours. Help me to walk lockstep with you and do what you want me to do here. And that doesn't mean ignoring all of the means at our disposal, our intellect, our will, our capabilities, our problem solving skills. We bring all of that to bear, but we really just lay it down at the Lord's feet and say, okay, Lord, here I am. Behold the handmaid of the Lord. I'm here to do your will. Please show me, what is your will? And when we have that confidence that what we're doing is God's will, then you really can train yourself to become more detached from the outcomes. Like you said, you have less examples of things failing. Most of the time, the Lord is extraordinarily generous. Sometimes things will fail. But what we have to do is approach it with this detachment of, Lord, if it was your will that I did this, and I am going to do it to the highest level I'm capable of, I'm going to do my very best to hear your voice, to align my will with your will, to pursue excellence in this endeavor that I'm doing. And then I'm leaving the results in your hands,
Yeah.
because that's not
Amen.
my lane. My lane is taking action when you tell me to take action. The Lord's lane is results and outcomes. And so we stay in our lane. We don't let ourselves get too worried about what's not ours. And again, this is a habit. This is training. This is practice. This is constant. And this is a daily thing. And then when we do face those overwhelming things, you've got 900 things on your to-do list, all of it seems equally important and pressing. It is training yourself to take that little bit of a 2-minute pause to turn to the Lord in prayer and say, Lord, this is my list. You know what's up today. What do you want me to do? Help me to prioritize
Oh,
it. Show
can
me, and then just step out, do it.
can you please put on a slide at your presentation at Wealth Without Guilt Live in Toronto? Put on the slide like your lane and then like God's lane is results. Like that's a very, very, very powerful image. Oh my gosh. And I'm just so excited you're going to present. So again, if you can't make it to Toronto, everybody, grab a virtual ticket because Jessica is presenting something incredible at my conference. You talk about our friends in the mastermind. I would love to hear, how has the mastermind impacted you? What is it like to be surrounded by both friends who are on the journey who are Catholic, but as well as Stephanie and myself who are Catholics in business, doing our very, very, very best to do what you just described, which is, practice what we are preaching. What has the mastermind been like for you?
It really has been a very incredible experience. I would say for me, the mastermind has been the one thing that's probably moved me forward in my business more than anything else. And so when I think about you and Stephanie, I think about you as like the dynamic duo. You have so much to offer and so much to bring to your clients in the mastermind, like with your mindset training and just coming with so much business experience yourself. And then Stephanie is like a powerhouse of strategy. She's just such a wealth of knowledge and support. And both of you approaching it from this authentically Catholic worldview is so refreshing. It really does help with, as you were saying, like business training is an awesome thing. We should definitely pursue it, but we have to pursue it in the right context. And so being in the Wealth Without Guilt mastermind, it's definitely been, you pursue excellence in business, but you do it from this very grounded, very centered context of your bigger vocation, which ultimately is holiness. And then of course, we have a vocation as many of us as wives and mothers. So that's been really powerful for me. The other thing that's been really powerful in the mastermind has just been being surrounded by these incredible women. And I think about the quote, a rising tide lifts all ships or something like that. I'm misquoting, but the main thing is like when you're in this community where everyone is striving together to really produce their best work, but to do it in this very Christ-centered way, it becomes this really awesome sisterhood. We have in the mastermind, we're supporting each other, we're encouraging one another. I've known in my time in the mastermind, sometimes I'll be working on something and I'll be like, oh, I want to finish this today because I want to share it in the Slack channel. Like, I want to share this with the mastermind and see what they think about it and get their feedback. The feedback, the support, the encouragement, everyone trying to help each other to make our work better and to grow together. It has been really incredible. And there have definitely been times where I've been discouraged or I've been tempted to quit, or I've thought, why am I even doing this? And it has been so powerful and so helpful to have this group of women that I can turn to and just share my struggles, because they're struggling with it too. Everyone is. It's, life as an entrepreneur. And it's just been, honestly, it's been a really, really incredible experience. So I would say for anyone listening to this, if you're considering joining the mastermind, come on in. It is so good. It
It's gonna
will
be
really be a life-changing experience.
it's gonna be even better next round. Like, we haven't shared with you guys yet some of the little changes we're making. Um, it's gonna be even better next round. But I'm being reminded of a story, and you'll have to help my somewhat not great at retaining memory brain. But I have a memory of you coming on a call. It wasn't this round, it was the round previous, I think, where you were gonna quit, and you weren't even gonna join us for the call, but your husband, who I still owe a gift basket to, Mr. Castillo, I owe you a gift basket. But I remember you were gonna quit. He said, "Just go on this last call," or whatever. He encouraged you to get on the call. Can you remind me what happened? Because I don't remember.
Yeah. So I had basically decided early on in the mastermind, because I was trapped in this comparison syndrome. I was looking around at the other women in the mastermind and I was thinking, these are really incredible women. They're further along in their business than I am. They're so capable. They're doing such amazing work. I don't belong here. Like, I am not good enough to be in this room. I'm going to just, you know what? I'm just going to quit. I'm just going to not show up for the call. And my husband was like you said, he really encouraged me. He's like, just go to the call, just see what happens. So I went on this call, and as part of the mastermind experience, sometimes you bring something up and everyone works together to mastermind on like support and tactics, strategies, thoughts that are helpful. And the thing that I was really struggling with was at that time defining my niche, who I worked with, who I served, what made me unique. Because at that time, I was still really operating in the context of I'm just a health coach. And for me, that was never enough. It was never what I felt the Lord was calling me to do with a thriving Catholic. And so when I was trying to paint myself in this narrow box of I'm a health coach and I help people with their health habits, it was not enough for me. It made me feel really unfulfilled, and it also made me really want to quit in my business. And I wasn't sure who I was uniquely equipped to serve. And it was actually in that mastermind, the call, that it became super abundantly clear. It was the most powerful call I've been on, where it was like, you are uniquely equipped to serve high achieving Catholic entrepreneurs. Like, this is where you shine. This is who you can really serve and serve extremely well. And it was so powerful for me. It was such a turning point. It really changed everything in my business. A lot of what I had been doing was kind of watered down. It was super generic. It was like marketing to Catholics in general, Catholic women in general. And when I got really clear about who I could serve and how I could serve them and really, really make the biggest impact and the most difference, it was like night and day difference. It really gave me that impetus and that fire. And the thing that led to that was that call and was that
One
mastermind experience.
call. One
Yeah, one
call.
call.
Like, and it's, I'm not trying to be, what's the word? I can think of the word that I'm trying to describe, but it, meaning it's not just one call. Like, of course, that one call can change things, but then you had to do a lot of things to get that off the ground. But it does express what I was talking about before about staying in it until you win it. That phrase that I was quoting. Not all of us are called to business. I just want to make that really clear. You could start a business and then you discern this is really actually not for me. But for those of us who are called, and I would say it's every single person in the mastermind, those of us who are called, there is a bit of that stay in it to win it, unless the Lord makes it incredibly clear that you're not supposed to. That story is just a great example of how one call gave you a bit of clarity, and then confidence came from that clarity as you continued to build out all the things. So let's talk about one of the things that you have built out, and that is mission driven peak performance. Tell us about this program. Spoiler alert, what I shared at the intro of this podcast was directly from Jessica's sales page for mission driven peak performance. And I swear it's like she was reading my diary. I hate to admit that last one about conversions at mass, I feel really bad admitting it, but it's like there's a quiet moment, and I'm not gonna lie, like, I more often than I care to admit, I will calculate, like, "Okay, well, if I sell this many, blah, blah, blah." Anyway, tell us about mission-driven peak performance.
So, Mission Driven Peak Performance is my flagship group coaching program for Catholic entrepreneurs. It is a 6-month coaching experience where we really systematically, each month for 6 months, will work on a different aspect of body, mind, and soul. So, we take these high impact strategies that are, from physical habits of sleep, diet, exercise, gut health, hormonal health, brain health. We take these physical things, but we also incorporate the best practices and strategies of productivity, of leadership, of mindset training. And we incorporate that with a really radical reliance on the Lord and on striving for holiness and this call for sanctity. And so, what I've done with Mission Driven Peak Performance is I've really just put this all in a framework where, as we're working through this coaching experience, not only are you learning the high impact strategies and tactics, but we're also applying to them really solid science backed habit formation techniques to make sure that you incorporate them in your life, they fit seamlessly into your life. And on top of that, we're really combining it with this mindset coaching of how do you keep your mind in the game, right? You said you got to be in it to win it, right? You can't quit. And so basically, the goal of Mission Driven Peak Performance is to use every means at your disposal, every means possible, body, mind, soul, every tool and weapon in your arsenal to increase your capacity for excellence. And when your capacity for excellence has increased, you become the kind of person who is a virtually burnout proof entrepreneur. You will continue to run this race and run it extraordinarily well, keeping your eyes fixed firmly on Jesus, knowing that that is your ultimate goal and destination, but you're going to be bringing your best self into this work. And so it really is about high performance. It is about that peak performance, but it's about doing it in a way that the secular world does not do it. And that is keeping in mind your end goal and your ultimate purpose and destination.
That crown that is not perishable. I'm gonna be thinking about that all day long. Oh my word. Jessica, I could honestly talk to you all day, but is there anything else that you didn't get a chance to mention that you'd love to share today?
Yeah, so I do have a free resource called the Thriving Catholic Entrepreneurs Roadmap, where I actually outline the step by step strategies, what these high impact tactics are that you can pursue to achieve this burnout proof entrepreneurship. So you can get that at athrivingcatholic.com/roadmap. And that is a free resource. So definitely get that. And that will kind of share a lot of what these tactics and techniques are. And yeah, I have a podcast series that goes along with the roadmap. So if you are auditory and you like hearing information better than reading it, check out a Thriving Catholic podcast. There is a Thriving Catholic Entrepreneur series.
Oh, it is so good, you guys. This roadmap, like it is so good. Jessica, where can people go to learn more about you and your work?
So you can find me online at athrivingcatholic.com. I am also on Instagram and Facebook, also at A Thriving Catholic. And of course, check out my podcast, A Thriving Catholic Podcast.
You're so fun. Jessica, thank you so much. And everybody, I will be maybe we'll do a live podcast at Wealth Without Guilt Live. I just realized that that could be kind of fun. I was going to say I won't see you next week, but maybe we'll do a live podcast at Wealth Without Guilt Live. So stay tuned for that. Everybody, thank you so much. Jessica, thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.